Hey there. If you're returning to the channel, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. The series reports on events and 5 points in history associated with the date going back 100 years, 50 years, 25 years, 10 years, and 1 year ago. Let's get to it. Legendary gunslinger and lawman Bill Tilghman was gunned down by federal prohibition agent Wiley Lynn. Tillman's associates claim he was attempting to take a drunken Lynn into custody, alleging that Lynn had carelessly discharged his firearm on the street. Though the details of the shooting vary, one account claimed that Tillman thought he had disarmed Lynn after taking his pistol, but was unaware of a second pistol, which Lynn used to shoot Tillman several times. Allegedly, the two had butted heads prior to the incident, with each accusing the other of corruption. Lynn would later be acquitted under a plea of self-defense, blaming the provocation on Tillman's corruption in the form of bribes received to look the other way, allowing bootleggers to supply the city. Lynn claimed that Tillman held him at gunpoint and threatened to kill him in response to Lynn attempting to carry out a raid on a local establishment. Various accounts of the incident exist, many of them telling a slightly different story. Of the sources I reviewed, there is no direct proof or trail to substantiate the claims from either side. Given the uncertainty of this story, my goal is to keep it brief and general. For those interested in digging deeper, I'll leave it to them to make their own judgments. I recommend learning more about Tillman's history, which includes some interesting events from his career in law enforcement, as well as some of the other adventures from over the course of his life. Timothy White was abducted in 1980 at the age of 5 by Kenneth Parnell. 8 years earlier, Parnell abducted another young boy, Stephen Stainer. Stephen was 7 years old when he was abducted. Sadly, there were no leads, and eventually Stainer faded from the forefront of public awareness. His abductor had immediately began abusing Stainer, as well as brainwashing and manipulating him. Parnell enrolled Stephen in school under a fake name, falsely claiming to be the boy's father. Parnell also attempted to use Stainer as an accomplice, attempting to perform additional abductions, which were later recounted by Stainer, with him also revealing that he intentionally botched the efforts to ensure Parnell was unsuccessful. In 1980, Parnell worked with another accomplice to abduct White. Parnell attempted to manipulate White with the goal of brainwashing the boy about his identity and trying to pass him off as his own son and Stephen's younger brother. Stainer decided that he would not allow the boy to suffer Parnell's abuse. After about 2 weeks, Stainer escaped with White, making his way to a police station. Stainer was eventually reunited with his family, trying to readjust and work through the difficult trauma. Sadly, Stephen would be killed in 1989 in a fatal hit-and-run accident. Timothy White would go on to serve the community, becoming a deputy at the LA County Sheriff's Department. White would also pass away before his time due to a pulmonary embolism in 2010. After the boys escaped, the police apprehended Parnell. He would only serve 5 years until he was released on parole. Parnell would make his way back to prison after attempting to purchase a 4-year-old boy and receive 25 years, of which he would serve just shy of 4 years before his death in 2008. Glossed over a lot of details. Sadly, the Stainer family endured more pain and loss after Stephen's tragic death, of which I'll not explore here. If you wish to learn more about Stephen's story, check out the 2022 documentary, Captive Audience. On October 22nd, 1999, forecasters have been tracking meteorological conditions through the Caribbean. By the 29th of October, the system being tracked had morphed into a tropical storm projected to hit the coast of Nicaragua and was expected to make its way to Honduras, Yucatan Peninsula, and Belize. Though the storm was not expected to be extremely powerful, there were still concerns that the amount of rainfall might result in flash flooding. Some mudslides and flooding did occur, resulting in evacuations, but the damage was considered minimal. There are reports of damage to bridges with no specific mention of deaths associated with the storm. On November 1st, the storm dissipated as it was absorbed by a cold front north of the Yucatan. Since the storm was considered minor, Katrina was used again to name a storm system in 2005, after which it was retired. Some areas within the Midlands of South Carolina saw the earliest snowfall in recorded history. Though cooler temperatures were expected along with rain, potentially turning to sleet during the overnight hours, significant accumulation of snow was not expected. Residents in impacted areas awoke to snow-covered conditions, with some areas recording around 3.5 inches. Some unconfirmed claims reported as much as 5 inches in some areas. The unexpected snowfall caused a brief closure of I-20 near Gilbert, with no major issues recorded, though some residents were without power the next morning. The Columbia Weather Station records from the same day of the previous year indicate the temperature at midnight was around 70 degrees, reaching 77 degrees during the day. The following year, on the same day, the temperature was around 61 degrees at midnight, reaching a high of 67 that day. We all know how unpredictable and irregular the weather can be, but luckily the disruptions were minimal, as unexpected snowstorms sometimes bring everything to a screeching halt. Bobby Knight was a well known basketball coach. Beginning his coaching career in 1962, he spent nearly 50 years coaching basketball. His most notable run was as head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers from 71 to 2000. He retired in 2008 with an overall record of 902 wins and 371 losses. Knight's long list of accomplishments include three NCAA championship wins with five Final Four appearances, as well as making the Big Ten 11 times. In addition to his impressive win record, Knight also earned various Coach of the Year awards during his career, as well as serving as head coach of the 1984 U.S. Olympic team. And the team did go on to win the gold. Though his achievements would have earned any coach notoriety in the world of basketball, his short temper and sometimes aggressive behavior brought him to another level. It wasn't uncommon for Knight to become visibly agitated, shouting his displeasure over calls made by officials. During a 1985 game, Knight became upset over calls within the first few minutes of the game. This quickly escalated, resulting in Knight being ejected from the game after throwing a chair onto the court. With the rumors and controversy surrounding Knight, his time at Indiana would end in 2000. A zero tolerance policy was placed on Knight after video evidence of him choking a player during practice came to light. Shortly after he was put on notice, he had an encounter with a student, the student addressing Knight by saying, "Hey Knight, what's up?" rather than addressing him as Coach Knight or Mr. Knight. Feeling disrespected, Knight grabbed the student by the arm and lectured him about manners, resulting in his release from Indiana. Though many disagreed with his approach and some despised him, he was well respected by many in the basketball world. That's all for this video. If you enjoyed this content and haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so, and I also really appreciate if you could leave a like. Thanks for watching.